Yeah, a lot of different things to discuss in this case. I guess the first thing would be, does it surprise you that this guy used a different ID to stay nearby, used cash? Does it also surprise you that he went to a Starbucks beforehand and it appears as though showed his face? And I guess my question to you is that with certainty, in your opinion, the same face of the person that we saw in some of those original images that were shown? Because there's speculation that that's a different person. What are your thoughts on that?
First, I think it is the same face. And that was at the hostel that he, disclosed his face. My understanding is they had to match the ID to the face, which now I think tempers this idea that it was a stolen ID. No, I think he came with fake falsified identification, and he had to show his face. There's also this mention of him being flirtatious during the smile. But it's the same person. The thing is, a couple of things. First of all, that lighting is totally different. The angle is totally different. And for anybody who delves into photography, those things can make somebody look very different.
Yeah, very true. So you've been doing this for a long time. Obviously, the FBI working very, very hard, working with local law enforcement there. What type of challenges does it present that this happened in downtown Manhattan, where there are millions and millions of people? Does that make this investigation that much harder? I mean, what are some of the obstacles that these agents are facing right now in investigating this crime?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. On the bright side, there's so many cameras there. There's so many people there. It really is a city that never sleeps. I've spent a lot of time there, and it's amazing. There's always somebody up and about. So that's good for witnesses. I think the main thing is it's helpful, honestly, that it was committed in this huge metropolis because there's so many breadcrumbs that have been left behind. That bike is going to be important because it has GPS on it. He did not use gloves. Now, we don't know if he donned gloves later. We don't know if he wiped anything down later, but that's going to be helpful. The fact that he was there for 10 days and went to a McDonald's and is seen
Right.
on all this camera footage, all that is so helpful for the police. They're going to find him.
So, Jennifer, I'm an outsider looking in here, but I think it's pretty obvious to note that this was a hit, right? This wasn't just some random, and the FBI has already said that, right? He's seen on the phone speaking with somebody, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was not too long before the actual shooting took place. And now I believe he might have left behind a cell phone. We don't know if it was that cell phone. We also know he left behind a water bottle. They're checking DNA evidence on that. Can you talk to us about that and how important that could be to this investigation in finding this man?
Well, the DNA is absolutely critical. But remember, if he's not in the CODIS database, that gets us into the area of genetic genealogy, and that takes a long time. But by unmasking, there's also facial recognition type software that can be used that might be helpful. Remember, now when you fly, they take a picture of your face. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of breadcrumbs, as I mentioned, that were left behind. And that's why this case is going to be solved.
If you're just joining us, she is Jennifer Coffindaffer. She is a retired special FBI agent, worked for 28 years, also a contributor to News Nation. So, Jennifer, is it fair to say the more time that goes by, the lesser the percentages or the chances are that they find this guy? Now, I think they will find him eventually, but the longer this goes, the more difficult it gets. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Not exactly, because a lot of these investigative techniques and tools, they just take time. This is true, what I call gumshoe investigation. This is getting out and beating the bushes, going door to door for that camera, for footage, for talking to individuals. This takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. But fortunately, I think, as we just talked about that DNA, that's going to lead us to him for sure.
Sure. Now, obviously, we both agree on this, and I've talked about this before. This is a horrible tragedy. This man did not deserve this to happen to him. He has a family. He's got kids. It's horrible, and my heart goes out to them. With that being said, obviously, this is a guy that had some skeletons in his closet, right? My understanding is the DOJ investigating him for insider trading. And I got to tell you, some of the disgusting comments, people making jokes about his death online, I don't support that at all. But with that being said, are you surprised that this guy had no security around him at all. Did that surprise you?
I'm very surprised, especially since very early on when the wife was interviewed. In fact, that same day, within hours, said that he had been receiving some death threats or threats of some nature. My question was that ever interviewed? Was it officially reported? And why in the world wasn't his team there? We know it's been corroborated that he had in-house security. Why isn't he being watched, especially in public, in a environment where it was advertised that this conference was taking place?
Yeah, Jennifer, I think those are great questions. And if any positive comes out of this, hopefully some other CEOs of some larger companies will have security around them at all times and maybe be a little bit more careful. So I'm with you. I think those are all very, very good questions that hopefully will be answered in the coming days, weeks, and months, and maybe even years.